All right, so I've got a bit of a different video for you today. I've gotten a lot of questions about sort of the core structure of my author business. I want to share with you the author-reader feedback loop that I use that allowed me to go from amateur to full-time in less than a year and a half. For anyone who's new to this channel, my name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author. I've written multiple best-selling series, and I make these videos because there are a lot of bad books out there, and I don't want yours to be one of them. But today, instead of talking about craft, we're going to talk about the business side of being an author. I get a lot of questions about how I structure my business, and specifically the feedback loop that I use to make sure that what I'm writing has an audience. When I tell people that I market test every single one of my books before I put it out, so I already know approximately how well it's going to do before it hits the market, people look at me like I'm crazy. But it's not really that hard. Let me walk that back. It's not complicated. It's simple. It's not always easy to do if you don't know how to do it. But I'm going to unpack that for you today. There's also going to be a link down below. If you're interested, I have a cheat sheet for this. And the best thing to do is probably to walk through it as I'm explaining this, because I'm going to give you a little bit of nuance that you won't necessarily get in the sheet itself, but the sheet gives you the basic structure of how this works. So let's get started. First, a not really disclaimer. Nothing in life is guaranteed. There's no way that I'm going to stand here and guarantee that you're going to be a successful author. However, what I will say is that I have personally used this process, and I have watched dozens of other highly successful authors use this same process or a process very similar to it. I think mine has a few tweaks that are key, but I've seen dozens of successful authors use this process. So I know it works. And if you can put in the time and the effort into doing it, I'm very confident that it's going to work for you as well. But again, I can't guarantee it. If you're not willing to do the work, then it's not going to happen. I like to operate off of first principles. And so I want to answer the question, what do we need to do in order to be successful? We need to sell books. Okay, so how do we sell books? Well, the answer to that is exceedingly simple. We write books that people want to read. Okay, I can literally feel everybody in the audience rolling their eyes. Obviously, we have to write books that people want to read. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to sell them. But while it sounds obvious, I need you to stick with me, okay? Because first, we have to understand what people want to read. And second, we have to be able to deliver that book. If we don't have those two pieces, if we don't know what they want to read, or we can't deliver the book they want to read, our craft isn't good enough, then we're going to fail before we even begin. This feedback loop is designed to solve both of those problems at the same time. Figuring out what people want to read and making sure our craft is good enough to deliver that book. Occasionally, you'll hear the term right to market thrown around, and it has sort of a bad connotation because typically when you see it online, what people are talking about is pumping out huge quantities of honestly really crappy story that's in a hot genre or niche. And so you'll find people who are writing highly specific, highly niched stories, and they're just pumping them out, and they are all pretty terrible. That is not what we're talking about here. Instead, what we're talking about is creating books, writing stories that are really, really good, but also fit what our audience wants to read. And if you can do that, you can be successful. The trick is getting there. Our ultimate goal with this model is to market test our stories before we get to Amazon. What we're going to be doing is creating a feedback loop that's as short as possible to create as many opportunities to iterate on what we're doing as we can. And I'm going to walk you all the way through this. So if you're like, Seth, I'm not following, don't worry. We're going to take this step by step. All right. So the first piece is our funnel. We have to understand how we're getting readers and how we're delivering content. Normally, authors use multiple funnels, one funnel to get readers in, and another funnel to keep them, and another funnel to deliver their content. I thought that seems wasteful, and I don't really have the time to manage all of that. And so instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one master funnel, and this funnel is going to work in two different directions. It's going to funnel readers down to my content, and it's going to funnel my content up to readers. The way this works is pretty simple. I start with a website like Royal Road or Wattpad or Scribblehub, some sort of website that has a gigantic audience that is already reading. Amazon actually counts for this as well, though it holds sort of a special category that I'll talk about in a second. On these websites, there are tons and tons of readers who are hungry to read good stories. And so I can deliver my content to them a chapter at a time, and they will read along with it, and they will leave comments, and they'll like my posts, and they'll talk amongst themselves, and they'll ask me questions, and I'll get feedback from them. From there, I move to a subscription service. I use Patreon. You could also use Ream. Both work approximately the same way. I put out content on a daily or weekly basis, and somebody pays me a small amount of money on a monthly basis to read the content that I'm putting out. I use Patreon. I funnel people from Royal Road, which is a very wide basket. I have a ton of readers on Royal Road. A few of them are coming to Patreon. And those people are paying for the privilege of reading ahead of what's on Royal Road. Those people are also able to leave comments. They're also able to talk about the story amongst themselves. From there, I move down another layer, and I have a Discord server. You could use a Facebook group. You could use any sort of community building tool. I happen to like Discord because it allows me real-time interaction. And those people can also talk about my stories. And from there, I move into a small private group where I have what I call my core reader group. And this core reader group are people who are picked from my Discord server after having filtered through Patreon from Royal Road or from Amazon. And so those core people I know are my perfect target audience. And they get the privilege of reading through all of my manuscripts before anybody else sees it and commenting on how it's going. But not only that, they also get the privilege of telling me what they'd like to see happen in the story. And I'll talk about why this funnel is important. But before I go any further, I want to explain how I distribute my content. I just flip the funnel on its head. I give my content, my stories, on a chapter-by-chapter basis to my core reader group. I get feedback from them, and I make my adjustments, and then I take that story and I put it up on Patreon on a chapter-by-chapter basis. I get comments and feedback from my patrons, and I make those adjustments, and then I put my content on Royal Road, and even more people see it. And those people then give me comments and feedback, and then after I make any adjustments I need to, I put it up on Amazon. Now, with each of these layers, I'm moving from my core reader group to Patreon, and then slightly wider again from my Patreon to Royal Road. What that allows me to do is it allows me to fix any problems before it gets to the widest audience, which is Amazon. And it tells me approximately how it's going to do on Amazon because I've been able to see 3 different groups of people interacting with it. Now, I know that some of you are recoiling right now, and you're saying, doesn't allowing people to comment and making adjustments, doesn't that just remove the creativity of it? Doesn't that undermine your creative control? And the answer is no. A lot of times people will say stuff, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I think this is cooler. Other times people will be like, I really like this thing. And I'll be like, it's not working for me. I'm going to get rid of it. Just because people give me comments and feedback doesn't mean I have to take it. I'm still in complete creative control of my stories, for better or worse. I'm the one who makes the final decision on what stays and what goes. But what I am getting is a nuanced understanding of how other people are going to react to my story. And so that's the funnel that I use. It goes 2 different ways. It goes from Royal Road down to my core reader group, and from my core reader group up to Royal Road. And then again, Amazon is sort of this special piece that sits adjacent to the funnel instead of in the funnel. Once my content has been properly tested on Royal Road, I send it to Amazon. And from Amazon, new people read it. I have links in the back of my books that send them to Royal Road or to Patreon, allowing them to enter the funnel. And so it creates this nice loop that allows me to put out content, market testing it every time before I sell it. So with the funnel explained, at least at high level, there's a ton of sort of particular detail that we'll probably go into in future videos. And if you have questions about it, definitely put them in the comments below and I'll try to answer as many as I can. But at a high level, that's how it works. And that brings us to the model, the author-reader feedback loop that I used in order to go from amateur to full-time author in less than a year and a half. Once again, if you haven't already, pause the video and download the PDF, the cheat sheet. You're going to be able to walk through this with me as I talk about it. First, you're going to pick an idea that you want to write and you're going to start writing it. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to be a good story. You don't have to worry about how it's going to end. You don't have to worry about anything really. You just need to start writing it. That's the first step. You have to start writing. If you get stuck, you could start a new story, though I definitely recommend giving it at least 20,000 words or more before you do. The one caveat to that is if you're brand new, just make sure you're writing. It doesn't matter if you're starting a new story. It doesn't matter if you're continuing an old story. It doesn't matter at all. If you're brand new to this, just make sure that you are writing. And that leads us into step number 2. Write daily. Set your goal at 500 words and try to write 500 words every single day. Do it for 30 days, and if you're feeling pretty comfortable with it, bump it up to 1,000. Write 1,000 words a day for 2 months, and if you're comfortable with it, bump it up to 1,500. Your goal is to slowly over time, and I mean slowly over time, work yourself up to 2,000 words a day. Again, I don't care what you're writing, just make sure that you're writing 2,000 words a day. Once you feel like you're able to keep up that pace, you're going to introduce absolute chaos into your life with step number 3, by inviting feedback. This is where a website like Royal Road, like Wattpad, like ScribbleHub can be really helpful. Because what you're going to do is post your content to those websites, and you're going to just put it out there in the world for everybody to see. And I know that's a terrifying thought, but again, bear with me so you understand how this works. Do you remember our question? What is one thing I can do better? What is one thing I can improve? That's what we're doing. We're putting our content out into the world, and then every single time somebody says something mean about it, and they will, you say, great, what's one thing I can do to improve? Did somebody not like your story? Good. Ask them what's one thing you can do to improve. Somebody say your character's stupid? Good. Ask them, what's one way I can make this character smarter? Somebody doesn't like the plot twist you threw in? Awesome. Ask them, how could I have foreshadowed this better so that you resonated with it and liked it? First of all, this is just a fantastic strategy for shutting up haters. I mean, if somebody says something mean and the person responds with, thank you so much for the feedback, I'd love to know how I can improve, like, that just takes all of the fun out of hating. And you'll find that most people may speak in a way that sounds hateful, that sounds mean, but really they're happy to help if you engage with them. If you take nothing else away from this video, understand this. Being able to get feedback and incorporate it is a superpower. And if you can do that, you don't need any model, you don't need any special tools. You're going to be successful. If you can incorporate feedback every single day and improve every single day, you're going to do fine. But for those of us like myself who need a little bit more structure, that's where this model is really helpful. So we picked our story, we're writing it, we're writing daily, and we've gotten ourselves up to 1,000 to 2,000 words a day. We're putting out our content for everybody in the world to see, and we're getting feedback. And not only are we getting feedback, but we're embracing it, and we're improving based on it. What do we do next? Number 4, we start to build our following. You want to know a little secret? If you ask somebody for help, they're likely to stick around and keep trying to help, especially online. People online love to belong to something. They love to contribute to something. And giving your readers the ability to speak into your stories and help you improve and watch you improve, you're going to find a lot of readers are going to live vicariously through your improvement. They'll say things like, man, I remember when this story started and it sucked, and now it's awesome. And they'll go and they'll tell other people about it because secretly they feel like it's their story. And that's okay, because those are the people who are going to become your biggest fans. And those are the people who are going to form the core of your following. Once you have built a bit of a following, once you have a story on Royal Road or on whatever website you're posting on that is doing fairly well, once you have that group, you're going to want to start converting them to patrons. Those are people who pay you to read ahead. And so step 5 is start offering advanced chapters. Once again, I want to make it very clear that you don't have to use the exact tools that I'm using. You just need to follow this process. So using your Patreon page, you're going to be offering advanced chapters to people who are paying you monthly. From there, step 6 is to start the Discord server or start this process of pulling people from Patreon into a place where you can communicate more freely with them and looking for the people who are most interested in interacting with you. This can sometimes take a little while. And while I have almost 600 patrons right now, I only have about 50 or 60 who are active on my Discord server. And of those people, I only have about a dozen who are the most active. And those are the people who I then pull into my core reader group. If you've downloaded the sheet, you can refer back to the funnel to understand how this structure is broken out. And then number 7. And number 7 is refine. You start asking the question, not just what is one thing I can improve, but you start asking the question, what are you excited about with this story? What are you excited to see in this story? You'd be amazed at the ideas that you'll get from your audience that will make your story cooler. Once again, I'm not saying that you have to take everything they say and incorporate it. No, you're the filter. You're the creative in this situation. It's up to you to craft the best story possible. But I hope you're following with me as to how this works. Once you have somebody who's interested in reading your story, interested enough that they're going to pay you monthly to read ahead, when you engage that person who is the most invested in your story, these are the readers that like what you write the most. They're going to be the perfect people to ask, where should I go with this? What should I do with this? What would you love to see in this? They, in turn, get the satisfaction of participating in your story in a way that other people don't get to, in a way that run-of-the-mill readers don't. And that's going to encourage them to share your novels with other people. We're creating a virtuous feedback loop, but more importantly, we're creating an improvement feedback loop that's going to allow us to get better and better and better and better and better through rapid iteration. This is going to allow us to polish our stories before we take them to Amazon, to understand what people like about them and what people don't like about them, to understand what people like about our characters and what people don't like about our characters. So I hope that's helpful. This is the model that I use that sits at the core of my author business. It has been incredibly successful for me, and I'm seeing other authors do it, and it's working for them as well. So I know that it's going to work for you. Like I said, if you have any questions or you want any clarifications about any of the pieces of this, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to answer as soon as I can. Don't forget to download the cheat sheet, and if you know any authors who you think might benefit from this video, please do me a favor and share this with them. I'd love for as many people as possible to understand how this works and incorporate the pieces that are helpful to them in their careers as well.